Well, hello and welcome everyone to this very, very special event that we have today. I would like to thank, first of all, Professor Strickland for agreeing to put up with us for one more day, and the members of the commission for arranging this and making this possible, and everyone from protocol and from the main organization that has helped us set this very, very special day up. So today we are extremely proud to welcome here at our humble institute Professor Donna Strickland. Donna Strickland is a professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of Waterloo. She was an Alfred Sloan Research Fellow. She got the Premier Research Excellence Award. She was a cultural scholar. She was a fellow of the Optical Society of America, of which she was also president. But of course, you know her for one little award that she won in 2018, which was the Nobel Prize in Physics. I mean, among the many accolades, I think, although all of those are very, very important, for us, her contributions are extremely important because most of us are working here in our different fields thanks to the work that she did at the beginning of her career and the work that she has been continuing doing ever since. In case some of you is a bit lost or you don't know why you wandered into this room, Professor Strickland developed shared pulse amplification with Gerard Moreau, and she did it in the first paper that took. I mean, she published these results in the first paper that took part of her PhD thesis. So that's the right way of setting a high bar, okay? So don't worry, this is not the usual thing. You don't need to win a Nobel Prize with your first paper. It's okay if you do it with the second or the third, okay? We're not going to ask you to hold to these standards. Well, today we have prepared a slightly different session from the ones that you usually have. We have had a few days to prepare for this. So we have asked members of the different, let's say, stages of the research career or members of different positions among the institute to come up with interesting questions or items for debate that we could consult with Donna about. And well, we have also representatives then from each of these people representing the PhD students, and our student chapter is Raquel Fernandez. Our postdocs and young researchers, let's say not early, but experienced young researchers is Maria Viñas, and as a representative of all the very important lab technicians that we have here, we have Fatima Cabello. So each of them have been gathering general questions that are of interest for all of us. But then, of course, since you're here, once we have covered a few of the basics, we will open the room for you. So if you have any particular question that you want to ask at the end of the session, you will have the opportunity, maybe. Okay. So thank you very much. I don't want to steal more time from the real protagonist of the morning. So why don't you start with your first question, Maria? Following our script and taking into account that we are at an outreach event. Yeah. So why not?
The first question is about outreach. So the first question is about the importance of outreach regarding science. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, and this is a question for one of the researchers of the institute. Is it true that the inspiration for ultra-short high-intensity beams came from a popular science article that described radar and its long radio waves? True or false?
Somewhat false.
Oh.
This is like the end.
They want me to help. Okay, it was actually, and I had forgotten that I'd written it in the original paper, that it is from radar, but it was a visitor that I was showing the laser to who said to me, "Oh, that's exactly like chirped radar." So we realized we had sort of reinvented the wheel, but we didn't know we were reinventing the wheel until we had. So that's where it came from.
And what do you think is the place of outreach? How important do you think outreach activities are in general career of a scientist?
Well, I'm hoping it starts to get stronger and stronger. We have started a new institute at the University of Waterloo for trust in science. And I think to some extent the trust is eroded. Now, I was just having the opportunity to speak to your president yesterday, and he thinks that since COVID, the Spanish people are more interested in science, whereas in North America, it sort of divided us even more into the believers and the non-believers. And so I think it's important that we keep letting the public know the role of science in society, how it can be an economic driver, how it can be a driver for health, how it can be a driver for social impact. And so we have to always be out there, not really even necessarily trying to get everyone to understand our science, but maybe just the scientific process, so that people understand why things take time and that we are checked and balanced many times, even though lately there's been a lot in the news about how some of us have run amok. But it should also then be pointed out that fellow scientists found the people who had run amok as well.
Thank you.
I think.
So yeah, let's go with another completely non-script.
No, I won't read my question. I think it's more general, so it's about how has winning the Nobel Prize changed your professional life, and has it also affected your day-to-day life outside of work?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. It is quite a life-changing event to win the Nobel Prize. The very first day, I had 1,500 emails. I heard back all the way to people that I went to elementary school with that I had lost touch with. Okay, so it was fantastic. I've been back to my elementary school and all through my schools and everywhere I've worked. And it's been wonderful to reconnect with all these people. I also that day spoke to my Prime Minister of Canada, which was quite something. I have had an audience with the Pope. I'm not Roman Catholic, but there you go. I've now met people like you, President of Spain. So these things don't happen to scientists without this kind of high, honor. Also, though, I would say it has affected my research poorly in that I'm not around very much, and so I think my students are struggling a bit more because they've been somewhat left adrift. And so I have to rein that in pretty soon. So that's the downside of it. But otherwise, no, I've had many opportunities that wouldn't come my way otherwise.
Have you been chased around by fans?
No, it is funny that, let me tell you this story. I was so used to all of our meetings still being on Zoom. And I was actually on campus, and I said, I have to get home. There's a Zoom meeting with the Dean of Engineering. And I get home, and no, the meeting was actually in person. So I had to run back to campus, drive back to campus, but then run across campus, and I'm 15 minutes late for this meeting, and so I apologized profusely. And the Dean of Engineering says, oh, I just assumed that you can't get across campus without people stopping you all the time. And I said, trust me, nobody recognizes me. So then, a few weeks later, she's coming out of a building, and I'm walking across campus, and she's on a bicycle. I noticed that all our deans are now riding bicycles around campus. Anyway, she gets off her bicycle. She says, I want to walk with you, because I want to see how everybody does recognize you. So we walked across campus till we get to physics, and nobody recognized me. And I go off to go physics, and the Dean of Engineering, I think, she just stood there and she shouted, goodbye to our Nobel laureate, Donna Strickland. So yeah, it's a lovely kind of fame in that even I went to the DAMOT meeting, which is the Division of Atomic and Molecular and Optical Physics, a year ago, and they did not have me speak until halfway through. Usually I'm the opening speaker at a conference. But until then, nobody knew who I was either, and so I could join the conference like a normal person. But once they announced me, then all of a sudden, I can't really stay anymore because then it's just nonstop people wanting selfies with me. So, so
yesterday somebody was chasing you when you came out.
Yes.
To get,
Yes.
so that's where the question.
But people have to announce it and then say, this is the person who won the Nobel Prize. Just me, I must have a very nondescript face. So.
So Fatima?
Okay, thank you. My question is, in your experience, what is the organizational structure that works better in a lab? I mean, pyramidal, hierarchical, horizontal, maybe more collaborative, or something a structure based on small groups?
Okay. Do you want me to use the microphone?
Yeah.
Yes, all right.
The one you prefer.
Okay, I don't think there's one right way. I think it all depends on who the people are. And I've said that, I got to work with both Gerard Moreau and Paul Corkum, who is a leader in the world of attosec and physics, and I learned from both of them, although I don't do either way like they do because I'm not them. But Gerard was an idea person. Gerard had ideas flying out of his head nonstop. And so we were, as students, not only doing our own PhD, but we always had to do whatever idea was flying into his head. And he would also judge how important it was. He would give us so long to try it and then scrap it or keep it going. But he had a large group. Paul at Corkum now has an enormous group, but at the time he only had a postdoc and a technician and himself. And sometimes he didn't even have the postdoc. And so you would hear him up and down the hall. We were in this laser and plasma section. We were in a small building. And you would hear him talking to all of the other scientists, and he would come to me a couple of times a day just to discuss his ideas. And he said to me, I always think through my ideas to the point where I know exactly how the experiment will work, because I don't have a group to give it to. I have to spend my own time. So by the time I'm ready to go in the lab, I know exactly how it will work at every step. So you can do it very careful, or you can keep throwing out ideas, and you can control groups different ways. But I am not much of a manager, so I keep my group small, and I just work. Before winning the Nobel Prize, I worked several times a day in the lab with the students. But I think everybody has their own approach.
But even if you keep your research group small, you still have to spend like a million times like asking for funding and writing grants, and that's managing the group as well, or not?
Well, Canadians don't have that many different grants to apply for. So, although I'm writing one right now, and it's taking a tremendous amount of time. But yes, I think it is up to us to obviously to bring in the money and help really with the starting ideas. Certainly by the time a PhD student is ready to finish, they should be generating as many ideas as you know. And so I think it's mostly that yes, you have to find the funding, you have to fight the upper echelons for whatever it is that our group needs, because somehow we lost our offices, but then we had to get them back and things like this. So yes, I think the professor has to manage all of that. But that's it. The real question, I think, is how do you get the most out of your group? And I think that's a different approach, and it also depends. Each student needs different types of encouragement as well. Some think too highly of themselves, and some don't have enough confidence, and so you have to get them right into the middle.
I think it's fine. Yeah. This question is about career development as well. I read somewhere that you needed 8 years after earning your PhD to get a full-time position in the university, and that you said that was in part to the two-body problem. For those who doesn't know what is the two-body problem, is that when two academics are married, typically it's the woman who steps back a little bit when there's a decision about movement in the family or a promotion or something like that. So I know in your case at the end it was not a problem, but do you think this situation has improved in the last years? Or if not, what do you think it would be a good step in the right direction in this two-body problem, but also in other problems?
I think, okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back one generation, because Doug was going to have me give this story when we were out for dinner. So when I finished my 3 years with Paul Corkum, my husband Doug, who's here with me, and I were going to get married, and he already had his dream job at Bell Labs in New Jersey, which was the place to be if you were an ultrafast laser person. So I could not. By this time, Reagan's Star Wars had come and gone, and laser jocks were a dime a dozen, and so I could not find a job in New Jersey to save my soul. And so this is why I took a job at a U.S. weapons lab, Lawrence, I shouldn't call it that, a U.S. national lab, Lawrence Livermore, but it was very awkward as a Canadian to be there. Now, I told my parents that this is what was going to happen, that right after we got married, I was going to be moving by myself from Ottawa to California, and Doug would be staying in New Jersey. And my mother was horrified, and she said, I haven't even met Doug's parents yet. What will they think of me for raising a daughter that wouldn't even live with her husband? And my dad piped up and said, I think it's great. And my mother, and Doug did not know this story until this little conversation, but she looked at him and she said, when I said I wanted to keep working after we got married, you said we'll wait another year to get married then. But now you think it's okay that your daughter's going to move right across the country from her husband. And my dad said, times are changing, Edith, times are changing. So, but I would also say that we had a program in Canada that was trying to get women faculty members. And so 2 different universities in Canada contacted me and said, will you apply through this program to be a faculty member here? And I said, well, I'm getting married to an American. Would this come with a job for an American husband as well? And they said no, right? And so this was our problem, is that there weren't these programs. But now there are in Canada, and I think many countries have these programs. And so it's much more likely. Certainly our department has its first husband and wife team. My daughter was at McGill, and I think they had 3 husband and wife teams in the physics department. And so I think that's quite a change.
Okay, my question is similar to Maria's one. So, but do you think that in order to have a very successful scientific career, one needs to make sacrifices in other aspects of life? And is it difficult to balance a successful career and a personal life?
I think with all things, compromises have to be made. There's only 24 hours in a day, so you have to choose what you want to do. I'll also say that, I did, when I became an assistant professor, I was almost always home for dinner. I did miss, and my daughter still knows, that I missed her very first dance recital because I was at a conference. But for the most part, I tried to be home. But I also then remember, as hard as I tried to do that, my husband, who was Jewish, and the children were raised Jewish, we were going to have a Passover Seder. Now my son, at the age of, 17 or 18, said, I'm not Jewish anymore, Mom. I don't need to go to a Seder. And I said, I've never been Jewish in my life, but this is a time when the family sits down and has this special meal. And my son said, Mom, if you didn't make us sit down every night and have dinner, it would be special. But you make us sit down every night and have dinner together, so it's not that special. So, it doesn't matter what you do. It's never going to be right.
That's a good thing. Okay, I'm taking this.
Okay. And my question is different. What do you say has been the importance of the contribution of lab technicians to your line of research over time? And do you think the lab of technicians are well considered, well evaluated in the labs where you have worked?
Okay. So you're here in something like our National Research Council, and so every group got to have a lab technician. I will also say that when I was an undergraduate, almost every lab at a university had a technician. But our research funding has not stayed up, and so almost no labs at universities now have lab technicians, which I think is an utter shame. I think it would help us a lot if we did have these technicians, especially in labs like mine where the lasers, and the students come and go. It would be good to have somebody who understands how to keep these lasers going once they're going and not being developed, right? Because my students actually develop the lasers, but then eventually they're used. I think it would be a real bonus. But little by little, we've been eroded away in Canada in the academic place. So, yes, should we have more funding for technicians? Yes, it would help tremendously. But certainly at our National Research Council's labs, they have them. And then they also have that added bonus. with many other added bonuses.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a little bit about science and about CPA, which has a lot of applications, laser surgery, which is close to my field. But in your opinion, which of those many applications is the one with the greater future, of the one who is going to be expanded more? Yeah, more than one. Yeah, that's true.
Well, of course, the cutting of transparent objects now is, I think, well understood, and so that's just being done. Whether it can go further afield, I don't know. I think what really the big push now, from a more applied point of view, is the laser acceleration. That's also quite a bit iffier, okay? Because we all sell our stuff the way we sell our stuff. And the point of laser acceleration is that when we focus down and have this huge intensity, we can accelerate charged particles 1,000 times more than a linear accelerator. What we never then go on and say is that in order to get that intensity, we have to focus tight. And so the length of focus is very small. So yes, we can go 1,000 times larger acceleration, but over probably 1,000 times shorter distance. So are we better off or not? And I haven't seen people starting to talk about how we're going to have to couple a few of these petawatt lasers together to have multiple chains of it. But I think there is enough effort in the world now towards that, and we now have multiple petawatt lasers in the world, and so I think that will be the one, and it would still be driven by medical applications for that. On the other hand, I think for physicists, even going to the highest intensities, I mean, they talk about just studying things like the acceleration of charged particles by these fields is the same acceleration as what would be felt by the gravitational pull near a black hole. And so now we can maybe study black hole-like acceleration here on Earth, and so that would just be fun to do, because that's what fundamental science is all about, having fun doing things.
And broadening a bit this field of view, I want to know how has the world of physics evolved since your Nobel-winning work, and what do you see today as the most exciting areas of research? And do you have any advice to young researchers pursuing a career in science as researchers or lab technicians?
No, that one that question was for some
Well, we won't answer that one yet.
Sorry.
So no, that's okay. Okay. I don't know that I don't even spend that much time thinking about all the various areas of science. What I would say is that, of course, as the years have gone on, different things have come and gone, right? In the 80s, we were going to be all about optical computing, and there was so much hype about it, and then it sort of fell apart. Now it's coming back, and silicon photonics is all the rage in a way in that field, but quantum computing eclipses even that, okay? And so what I would like to see is the fact that we don't all keep jumping on the bandwagons and going to what the big fields are. I would like us to see as a field and somehow convince the funders that many fields should be explored, because we don't know where the gems are coming from. And so we don't know which thing will spring up. That said, I was just at a meeting last week, and I was assured that there would be a quantum computer within 5 years that would be like the ChatGPT moment that we've just had this last year, show that let's all be ready for it. We're going to be having quantum computers soon, so, and that will be different and exciting.
So the question is
Yeah, do you have any advice for young researchers that pursuing a career in science as researchers or lab technicians?
My advice is always the same. I think you just have to find out what you really want to do and do it, okay? I think we're all born to do something. I mean, I actually, in a way, think my advantage is that I was good at almost nothing, except for maybe one or two things. And so I knew exactly what my lane was. And if you actually know what your lane is early on, it's pretty easy to keep following that lane. Whereas if you're good at too many things, I don't know how you make up your mind as to what it is you really want to do. And so this is just it. And you know, early on, I was back at Livermore, and we were having a conversation between this woman that had been a graduate student in the group when I was a laser scientist in this group. And she talked about how, and I had forgotten this, she said, Donna was the one who told me that what I just really needed was some confidence, and that I was just supposed to get on with it and have some confidence in my ability and move forward. This woman is now the director of Lawrence Livermore National Lab. So I'm thinking, okay, I think I could learn about confidence from her. And then when I talked to her about it afterwards, she said, you know, the whole time I was a scientist, I thought I'm a good scientist. But when I first got into my first management role, I just knew that I was an excellent manager. And so I knew that I had to go the management way. And so I think this is true for most of us, is that we just find where we belong and just make the most of where we each belong.
Thank you very much. Now, if that's all right with you, we will give the public some opportunity to ask a few questions. So, who dares?
Good morning, and thank you for being here. My impression is that the color of my hair is similar to yours. That means that we have been working for a while in this business. I know what's the paper I have most times been cited, but this is not the paper I like more. It's not the paper I love more at all. Do you have some other papers, some other lines, some other work that in your heart is sort of comparable or even better than the CPAs you have to be talking around all the time?
I think I've known since I did CPA I would never top CPA, so I haven't tried to do that. But I will tell you the one that I'm in a way just as proud of. And it was still back early days when I was a postdoc. I will also admit that I hate computers. And so my undergrad experience in computers just turned me off. Anyway, I did not even go really near a computer in grad school. And now I'm a postdoc. And Paul and I were working on how self-focusing leads to continuum generation. And he had the idea of how it formed into a continuum, but we each had our own idea of why the spatial structure was what it was. And I even forget what Paul's idea was now. But neither of us, in all these times that Paul and I would discuss this, because Paul liked to discuss this, we could not convince the other one that we were right and they were wrong. And so I kept thinking, what can I do? And I said, I'm going to have to computer model my idea to show that it's right. But I don't even know how to get on a computer anymore. So I had this, there was, in the laser plasma section, there was this lovely theorist. So I walked up to him and I said, I don't even know how to get on a computer, what do I do? And he said, just use my account, and he showed me how to do it. And what I did not like about computing, because this was long before, well, when I was undergrad, there was no line-by-line editing, and I would just get told it was a syntax error, syntax error, syntax error, till I thought I would lose my cotton-picking mind. So this time, though, he was lovely. I only worked in the evenings and weekends when Paul wasn't there, so he didn't know I was trying to do this to show him that. And finally, he came in, I remember one Saturday, and he sees me at the computer, and he said, I have 2 questions for you, Donna. Why are you here on a Saturday? And why are you sitting at a computer? And I said, funny you should ask today, Paul, because I just got it to work. And I showed him. And so we've published that work, and it's not highly published at all. Because by the time we finally did this, Gerard Maru had already put his big laser down the hall and seen filamentation down the whole 20 meters of hull, and that became the highfalutin thing. But I still think that I made this contribution, and I just liked the fact that I was right.
Have you ever used a computer again?
No, that was the last time. So yes, I've always had colleagues, and now that's the student's job.
Okay. Any more questions? Yeah, we have one.
Thanks. Firstly, sorry if this question is too personal, but have you ever have you ever had any kind of imposter syndrome? For example, the thought that, oh my God, I don't deserve that prize or this attention. And how did you start to valorate yourself and what you do and what you get?
You're really going to get your exercise today. I've been asked that question a lot since winning the Nobel Prize, and my answer is I've never had imposter syndrome as bad as since winning the Nobel Prize, because people really think that because you're a Nobel Prize winner, you must be so unbelievably smart, and they expect me to know about so many things, and I don't. And so I think that is a struggle, but on the other hand, I also get away with saying anything I want now too, so that's okay also. And I do think, and the other thing, because somehow it's come to my attention that it's women who think that they have imposter syndrome more than men, and I fight back on that. I think men aren't allowed to show it, and women are allowed to show it. And so I think women confuse bravado with confidence. I think to some extent there's always going to be times in life where we don't have confidence, and other times when we maybe have too much, but most of the time hopefully we have just the right amount to keep on moving forward. I don't mind having imposter syndrome, but that doesn't stop me from just thinking I've got to take the next step and keep moving forward.
More questions? Nobody dares to?
One in the back, because you just want to see him run.
So you mentioned that you're writing a grant, applying for funding. My question is, do you actually have to write the grant, or you just say, it's me, Nobel Prize, give me the money, you get everything?
That's what everybody thinks. I'm quite worried about this one because, as I said, I have not had that much research success since winning the Nobel Prize. And so I was just at NSERC, which is our main funder, and giving a talk. And they introduced me by saying they're so proud that they've always funded me since I came back to Canada. And I said, I know, but this time you may not, because I haven't accomplished much, so I'm wondering what we're all going to do. And I think it's going to be embarrassing for everybody, the reviewers and NSERC and everybody. So that's the problem. But I will just tell you, because people assume because you have an NSERC or a Nobel Prize, you just, boom, everything comes your way. I do have money straight from the university because of that, right? Because they want to keep me. So that's good. So I'm not even worried about the money, but I don't want to lose my NSERC, because then you can't have NSERC students, or I'm on an NSERC Create grant and I couldn't be on that, which is a big networking thing. And I think it's important for my students to be networked through it. So I'm hoping they give me some small amount of money just so I can stay in the NSERC system. But I am trying to get a Canadian network going for global environmental measurement and monitoring. And I have had 3 workshops now in Canada. Now, the first one was in 2017, and remember I won in 2018. 2017, and I had trouble getting the government, even though it was held in Ottawa, which is our capital. I could not get many government people to show up. Then the next one, I thought, okay, let's forget the government people. Let's make sure, the idea of the network is to bring sensor developers together with environmental scientists who maybe need better sensors, and just to see if we can get them talking together so that we get more sensors for environmental measurement. So I thought we have to just get these 2 groups of scientists together without the government and see if we get our elevator pitch better. Well, so then the head of our National Research Council, so the equivalent to CSIC, came to Waterloo for a different reason, but wanted to see me because I'd won the Nobel Prize. And I said, oh, I'm coming to one of your NRCs, the one in Boucherville, for this meeting. Well, poof, poof, poof. I've got the VP of NRC coming to my meeting. I've got the Assistant Deputy Minister for the Environment Canada coming to my meeting, just because now I have a Nobel Prize, and they all want the picture with me. And then the third meeting ended up having to be on Zoom, so everybody could come anyway, but I had the head of NSERC, I had the Assistant Deputy Minister again of Environment Canada, I had the Assistant Deputy Minister of Natural Resources there. Boom, everybody's there. Everybody's getting their picture with me, everybody. But then they send me a grant application, I write out the grant application, and I get no money. So I'm still trying.
But
Reality.
in the grant application now you write like Professor Donna Strickland, like I say, I will write for me junior PI, but do you write like Nobel laureate or like at the beginning of the grant, or how is that? Oh,
I've got it in the way I write the grant. It says something like since winning the Nobel Prize. Yes, there is no denying that I'm the Nobel laureate in my grant. No.
So my question is on the importance of, for your career, of being the smartest person or having expertise versus being in the right place at the right time. And just my background, I finished my master's 15 years ago. We got together, there's about 10 of us. And actually, there is not that, so the ones with better academic grades are not necessarily the ones with the better positions now or earning more, but actually the ones who traveled more, in my small group, are the ones actually doing better. And actually even the ones who had better academic grades, two of them, they were always after small positions where they were, so they never traveled, and right now actually they are at the bottom, at least earning and not stable and so on. So obviously to be hyper successful, you need to be the right person in the having a high expertise and being in the right place. But for, let's say, median or every other scientist, do you think that which one outperforms? So being in the right place or being the smartest guy?
I don't think being the smartest person is that critical, okay? But I also think what you're describing is the fact that it all depends on what you want out of life, right? I think the person who is willing to travel, and people then say, oh, their career is important to them, they're willing to go to A, B, C, D and work their way up a ladder and do all these things, and so then they think, okay, this person's right for the next job because they're willing to do this. A person who has, for whatever reason, family or what have you, decides that they want a nice, simple life and stay at home and do this, and they're happy doing it, that's just as good a career as the one that moved up the chain. It's just a different career. And I don't know that we should always judge success by the dollars they make either. And so the question is really, again, it always gets back to you have to do what you want. Some people are happy climbing that ladder, and some people have no desire to climb the ladder. So, yeah, but I don't know that it's grades per se. I was not the top student in my class, right? So I don't think that matters. I was a very good student, but not the top student.
Good. Do we have any more questions? Oh, yes. Next time you see them.
Thank you. Hello. One comment first and then one question. One comment is about your presentation yesterday that I really enjoyed. It was so pedagogical, and I think that's very important from like so well-known people and have winning a Nobel Prize and make everything understandable to everyone. And my question, I saw in your presentation yesterday a photo with the King of Sweden. So I was in Sweden for 7 years. I just moved to Spain, so I love Sweden. And I want to ask you, what was your experience of receiving the Nobel Prize, and how did you feel, and all this magnificent experience in the City Hall and everything? Thank you.
So this is the advantage of being a woman, in that the person that gets to sit with the king will always be related to the physics prize, because in the Nobel will, physics is first. But it is most often the wife of the Nobel laureate and not the Nobel laureate. And so this is why I'm the one who got to sit beside the king, because I was physics and a woman. I also got to sit beside his very wonderful son, who was a Prince Charming, to beat all Prince Charmings, the next day at the palace. And that was in this golden room that was just, I mean, and I say it in the talks, sometimes in the public talk when I get an hour, the last 15 minutes is about the week in Sweden. And I talk about how that was just like a fairy tale, you know, just sitting with a prince in a palace and dining. And so it was quite the experience. I think sitting with the king was an incredible experience. He seems like a really lovely man. I don't think I'm supposed to say what he talked about, but he had me cracking up all the time. And in fact, the prince, so every 20 minutes you must change like this. And so I had his son-in-law, the crown princess's husband was on this side of me, and he said, I heard you laughing. I said, I tried to get the king to laugh. He goes, oh, I didn't say I heard the king laughing. And next thing you know, the two of them lean forward and they have this whole discussion about whether or not I got him to laugh. I won't tell you what the king said, but it was hilarious. So he got me to laugh again, which is not that hard to do. But I think the whole family was charming, which I guess is their job as a royal family. But they do it very well. So, yes, no, I enjoyed the whole experience. I also like to show this picture. Frances Arnold, who won with me when she won in chemistry, she shows a picture of us at a party holding up our pretend gold medals that are gold-wrapped chocolates. And it's a nice picture of us. I always show the picture of us in the rehearsal for the ceremony, where we're waiting behind the scenes to practice going out, listening to our musical cue. And all the men are just standing there, just waiting for their musical cue, and Frances and I are still laughing our heads off, right? And I'm going, the women were there to enjoy the whole week. It was like, and so that's the picture I like to show about the women during the Nobel Prize ceremony. I think we can use both, so you can put that in. Is that an actual mic? Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
I could have kept that one.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. So thank you for being here. I have a question now, since your research is, or the topic of the Nobel Prize is quite related with technology. My question is, what is your relationship with industry? Let's say, two questions. How many of your students, for example, ends in a laser company, for example? And in that topic, know that the femtosecond laser market is very competitive. Do you receive many offers for, let's say, make a photo together with one of the lasers? So let's say use some of the commercial lasers in your lab, for example. Do you receive many proposals of this kind?
I haven't had too many people saying, well, I'll give you a free laser so that just to have a picture taken with me. I haven't had that. A friend of ours who were in grad school with us was he CTO by the time with Spectra Physics? CTO of Spectra. And so they named a lab after me, so I did stop by when I was in California and have my picture, cutting the ribbon of the Donna Strickland lab at Spectra Physics. I am on the Growth Technology Advisory Board of Applied Materials right now. I would say most of my students do go out to industry. I would say the downside of it is when I try to find a postdoc who has experience with fiber lasers, it's almost impossible because we cannot compete with the kind of salaries and the opportunities. The labs that they have to work in are far more grandiose than what I can offer as well. So it's a double-edged sword, is that yes, my students can go out and work, but I can't maintain a postdoc necessarily.
I think it's time to move upstairs and relax, and let Donna in particular relax a little bit. Thank you very much for attending. Thanks again to the Commission for helping setting all this up, and thanks to the public, and very especially to Donna and to you for putting also up with all this. So thanks a lot. We would like you to sign our Book of Honor. Yeah, in this one, we only have 3 previous Nobel Prizes, but they're all from the 50s. We have Heisenberg, Carnot, and Castro. But the first signature is, unfortunately, from a darker character that you have there, which is General Franco. So let's move up quickly. Yeah, there is a disclaimer. Sorry, we have a disclaimer there. So it's unfortunately he was opening this thing. The book was abandoned for a few years. We rediscovered it recently. So. Thank you very much. Yes, shouldn't we? But it is the truth. I mean, it was available for 20 years. Maybe we should put the disclaimer on top of the signature, so you wouldn't have to actually explain it.